What's up, guys? It's Rogowy here, and I'm back with another tutorial. And today we are looking at combining our skills with Photoshop and Illustrator to create a really cool effect, okay? Something that looks pretty awesome. And I'm going to include all of these source files in my description, so make sure you check that out. I'll have a link to that so you can follow along wherever you are. So let's go into it. We are looking at Surreal tutorial. Okay, and I'm going to go through some of the basics, some of the things that you guys should know hopefully in Photoshop already, but we'll also look at some stuff with Illustrator. And it's important to mention that you're going to need to know both Photoshop, Illustrator, and InDesign if you're working as a graphic designer. So we're going to be going between the two, Photoshop and Illustrator, quite a bit in this. Now we're going to go to our fonts folder first, and you'll see that we have the entire geometric font library. It's a nice clean font. We're going to hold Shift to select everything and double click, and we're just going to hit install. Now I'm going to get all sorts of error messages because I actually have it already installed, but I'll do it anyways. Install, 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 install. And you can see that those should all be on the computer, geometric, there they are. And one thing we're going to need to do is if you do get this message, you're on a Mac, click select all fonts and click install checked. That will get past that message, so you don't have to worry about it. Next, we're going to go into images. We're going to look for the picture called female image, and I'm going to drag it to my Photoshop. There it goes. And let me just close these other ones because I don't want to mess anything up here. So we've got this picture of this very serious looking girl over a white background. And we're going to kind of have some fun with this photo. We're going to change it up and make it look kind of psychedelic and fun, and see how it goes. So we're in Photoshop. We've got the picture. Going to press Command 0 to fill it to the screen. Now I know that I'm going to use this particular photo in, I guess we'll end up with kind of a magazine cover looking thing at the end. So I'm going to go to my crop tool right here. I'm going to put in a ratio of 8.5 by 11. Okay. I'm going to hit return or enter on the PC. And that is just going to crop it nicely for that size so that it's going to fit that page, that letter size right away. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the magic wand, and I'm going to make sure my tolerance up here, I'll set it at about 16. That's pretty good. That determines how close the colors need to be when I select them. We're also going to make sure add to selection is on right here. That's important too. And now we can start clicking in the background to select all of the white area behind the girl. All right, we can leave the hair as is. Probably won't make a big deal, a big difference. We want to get this little area here, but we're probably going to have an issue with the string, so we're going to fix that up in a second. Very important that we're going to unlock the background. Click. And we are going to hit delete or backspace on the PC and get rid of the background. You're going to see this grid that tells us that it's transparent. I'm hitting Command D to deselect, and I'm going to go down into this little space here. Magic wand again, maybe set my tolerance down to about 5. Click, delete, click, delete. Just getting all the areas. And if I feel that's not good enough, I can always go and hit the eraser and get rid of that a little better. Use the brackets that are next to the P key on your keyboard to change the brush size really quickly, and you should be good to go. Alright, so that's not bad. Looks good. We got the background out. Now what we're going to do is we're going to have a little bit of fun, and I know it's going to look weird, but the end result will look pretty cool. We're going to go to Image, Adjustments, Invert, and we're going to invert the colors of this picture, so now she becomes like, I don't know, a ghost or something. We're going to go to Image, Adjustments, Hue and Saturation. We're going to tweak the hue to something kind of cool, something like that. Maybe adjust our saturation a little bit. Okay. Tweak it a little bit. That's interesting. We're going to hit OK. So we now have the background out. We got her inverted. We got kind of this neat sort of effect going across it. And now we're going to go to the next image, which is Hubble.tiff. We're going to drag that one to Photoshop. And we're going to click and drag using the Move tool. Whoops, cancel. Move tool. We're going to click and drag. And we're going to hold, keep holding, and drop it on her. That's going to cover her up. We want it to be in the background layer, so we're going to click this layer and drag it underneath so it is underneath that girl. I'm just going to zoom out a little bit. Now, we want this space scene to fit the page a little bit better than that. So I'm going to press Command T or Control T on the PC, and I'm going to shrink it. I'm not worried about stretching it. It's just stars and space. It's not a big deal. I'm just going to fit it to the page like that. All right. That's looking good. Command 0 to fill the screen. And you can see we've got this kind of space scene behind her. Kind of interesting. Kind of weird. I might go and tweak this a little bit better with the hue and say, I don't know if I like this color that I picked for her. I might find something that matches this a little bit better. Maybe something like that. Okay. So good. Now what we're going to do is we are going to put some stars in front of her so she looks like she's in this cloudy astral mist. I don't know. It's weird, but let's do it anyways. Go to stars. This is the file for that. We're going to pull that into Photoshop. And we're going to click and drag it and drop it on top of her like this. Now for this one, I don't want the stars to get all stretched out of place. So I'm going to do Command T or Control T on the PC. And I'm going to actually hold Shift, scale it up as I do this, and just fill the width of the page. And I'm going to go about halfway, something like that, so that it is covering her up. Now here's kind of a weird step, but it'll make sense in a second. We're going to take this layer, make sure it's at the top, and we're going to add a layer mask to it. That's this icon. And you'll see that your layer splits into two. We're going to select the side that has the mask, that's this side here, and we are going to go to Edit, Fill, and we're going to fill it with black. And if you know how an image mask works, when we fill it with black, everything on that layer disappears. But we want to control which parts come back. And if we want it to look like clouds, what we're going to do here now is load a cloud brush. So, switch to the brush tool. Shortcut is B. Go up to the top to your options here and click this little gear in the corner. Load brushes. And in that folder, I have a cloud custom brush. We're going to hit open. And you'll notice that the brushes get added to the bottom of your brush library. And so these are just pictures of clouds. I'm going to pick this one, 786, and you'll notice that it comes in pretty small. Okay, the little preview is fairly tiny. So once again, we can use the brackets to the right of the P key and enlarge it. And we need to set the color, the foreground color, to white, because what we want to do now on the mask is bring back the areas where we click. So if I click here, I just want to click once. That brings back the cloud in kind of a misty sort of cloud shape. And I can also go here and pick a different one so I don't have any repeating shapes. Maybe fill in an area like this and click. That's kind of cool. Maybe I can do it again with a different cloud, again, enlarge and click. And now we got this kind of misty stars in the foreground, just kind of soft. Now, the way the layer mask works is if I hold Option and I click the mask I can see that it's got black, but it's got a few clouds down at the bottom where I clicked. And basically the black parts are hidden, but the white parts are showing, and the shades of gray in between create this transparent sort of effect. So it's really nice, really easy to do, looks great. Okay, so we're on our way to creating kind of a trippy, psychedelic looking poster here. Next, we are going to look at blending modes, which is another thing that's interesting, and we're going to use the crystal TIFF, this one here, to create kind of a neat effect behind her. So we're going to click that, drag it to Photoshop, and we're going to pull it into our female image tab. Use Command T, hold Shift, hit return or enter to confirm your transformation. It looks really bad with the black background. So what we're going to do is we're going to press Command T one more time. We're going to go to the corner. You notice that you have the rotating arrows, and we're going to just rotate it kind of off to the side like this. Maybe shrink it down a little bit like that. And we're going to move this layer down under the girl layer. So there we go. Now what we're going to do is we're going to change the blending mode for this to something that looks interesting. Let's do something like lighten, or screen, or maybe color dodge. There are a lot of options here because blending modes change the way that our layers interact with the layers underneath them. All right, and so we can get all sorts of neat effects. Personally, I kind of like this linear dodge one. It's kind of maybe a little too bright, so I'm going to pull down the opacity a bit. I don't know, maybe not. Maybe screen. Maybe I'll leave that one. Just going to kind of make it look like these crystals are coming out of the side of her. And here's a little trick in Photoshop. You can hold Option and click and drag, and you can make a copy of that layer really quick and easy. And then what we could do is use Command T to rotate it, to maybe shrink it a bit, and have some crystals coming out of the other side of the picture as well. Something like that. It's kind of cool. Okay, and you can see how you can get this effect pretty easy, pretty quick and easy. And it's interesting, okay, because we're using different pictures to create a whole new picture, a whole new sort of design. All right, so we got that, and that's kind of all right. I'm going to get in the habit of naming my layers because that's good practice. So I'm going to call this background. I'm going to call this crystal 1. And crystal 2. I'm going to call this girl, and I'm going to call this mist. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a new layer. I'm going to make sure it's at the top, and I'm going to call this stars. Now this is a cool layer. What we're going to do with this is we're going to make this an effect layer. So you're going to select this layer. You're going to go down to where it says effects or FX. And we're going to click that, and we're going to go to outer glow. Now, this is kind of cool. What we can do here is set up a glow on this layer, even though there's nothing on it. And I'm going to set it to screen, opacity 85, that's pretty good. I'm going to pick a color. Let's go with something like, I don't know, I'll go with kind of a fiery orange. And you see how that's going to look. I got my spread at 5%, my size at 111. We don't have to worry about the quality right now. I'm going to hit OK. Now you don't see anything change except the fact that this layer now has the effect added to it. The way this works is we can go into our brushes. We can go up into our brush editor, and we're going to pick one of the circular soft brushes. Okay, so I got the size is gigantic. I'm going to bring that down. But the hardness is about 50%. That should be good. Okay. What we can do now that we have this effect on this layer, when I click, first of all, let me set my foreground color to a white, or maybe just an off-white a little bit. When I click, it will instantly add, and I'm just changing the size of my brush as I do this. it will add the glow automatically. This kind of neat outer glow effect will be added to every click, every drop I make. So I can kind of make this ethereal, cosmic sort of orbs that look like they're around her. And if I don't like it, I can go and erase. Let's see, this one looks too intense. Just erase it and kind of create this neat effect. Now the great thing about an effects layer is that, let's say I don't like the orange. Maybe it looks too warm or whatever, doesn't go with this picture very well. I can always go to this outer glow, double click it, change the color, and you can see that it is updating automatically over on the other side, okay, to whatever my new settings are set to. And this is really cool because we can design on the fly, and that layer is always going to be there. It can always be edited. It's going to work. Next, what we want to do is, I feel that this picture looks a little bit too saturated. So I'm going to add an adjustment layer. And adjustment layers are great because they can also be edited in the future if we make a mistake. So I'm going to click the little yin-yang type looking symbol, and I'm going to choose hue and saturation. And I'm going to get this pop up somewhere on my screen, and I'm going to pull down my saturation a bit just so it's a little more muted because it looks a little too vivid. It's way too bright. We want to pull it down a bit just so the colors aren't so intense. All right, so I went down about, let's go about -20. And to me, that looks really good. That looks great. So this will be the background for our image. We're going to go File, Save As. I'm going to just put it on my desktop and call it background. And save. Hit OK. Now we're going to jump into Illustrator, where we can actually build this file. I didn't want you to see that just yet because I had already finished it, but we're going to go launch Illustrator. For you, probably on your dock, but we're going to launch it up. And we're going to create a brand new document for this picture to fit onto. Like I said, when you're working as a designer, you're going to be working in all Adobe, Illustrator, Photoshop, InDesign, all at the same time. And each program has its strengths. So we're going to go File, New. I'm going to go to Print. I'm going to choose a letter size page, and just for reference, if I want to change it to a custom size, I can put that here. I can also change my measurement, so inches or centimeters, whatever I'm working in, pixels. But I'm going to just pick a standard letter size page. I'm going to hit Create. And now, because I cropped my picture right at the start, I should be able to just go File, Place, find my background image on the desktop, place it, and line it up with the corner and click. And look at that, it's a little too big, no big deal. We'll shrink it down. And it should, yep, it should fit perfectly. Okay, looks great. Now that's our background image, and my palettes are all over the place here. I'm going to close some because it's crazy. I'm going to go to my window layers, and what I'm going to do is lock this background layer. Okay, I don't want to affect this original artwork at all. I'm going to create a layer above, and this is where we're going to actually put the text for this particular design. And in Illustrator, if you're working with text, you've got a lot of options. But we're going to click the text tool, which is the T. And I'm just going to click near her head somewhere here, and I'm going to put an F. Okay, you can't see it, because what I need to do is press Command A to select, or select that F, and I'm going to change it to white. And I'm also going to go to my selection tool and scale the F up so that I can see it nice and clear. Now what we want to do is we want to set this font to the geometric font we loaded at the start, and we're going to use 231 Light BT. And that's going to look great. Now, what we want to do, and you'll see the effect at the end, we're going to put an F. I'm going to put a couple spaces, Probably not the best way to do it. We could use tabs. We're going to put F and then RST, and we're going to just kind of fit those letters around her head, like so. FRST, with a space in between. Then what we're going to do, we're going to click this font, or this text, and we're going to hold Option. And when you hold Option, you can actually drag a copy, just like we did in Photoshop, to create another line with the same text, same font, same everything. And for this one, we're going to put a C, and we're going to put some spaces. Okay, NT over here. Now we could just do the NT separate, but I just wanted them to be lined up. And we're going to just move this line over a little bit. We're going to make an O using the ellipse tool, like so, about the same height, and we're going to fill it with white, like that. And then we're going to click this line once again. We're going to hold Option. I'm going to drag a copy down. I'm holding Shift so it moves in a straight line. And we're going to put the letters ACT. So I don't know how easy that is to see, but it says First Contact in kind of a funky sort of look. Now, some of this text is really hard to read. So what we can do is we can click and hold Shift to select all the little pieces we just created. And we can go to Effect, Stylize, Drop Shadow, turn on Preview, and let's just set the offset to 0, 0 so that the shadow is directly behind the text. And that's going to just make it so much easier to read that. Okay, so that's looking pretty interesting. Now the next thing we're going to do is we are going to create a box at the bottom. So we're going to click on the same place we found the ellipse, and we're going to choose Rectangle. Again, we're going to make sure our color is white. We're going to click and drag a box along the bottom, like so. The exact size is not super important. Okay? Let me just move this down a little bit. And what we're going to do with this box, we're going to click it so it's selected, and we're going to go to Window, Transparency, and you'll notice that this is exactly what we saw in Photoshop. We've got our blending modes, and we've got an opacity slider. So we can pull this down to 50%, and that kind of makes a neat semi-transparent box at the bottom that we can kind of see through and add some information if we want to it. Okay, so what would go in that box? Well, perhaps we would have a barcode if this was going to be a cover or some sort of a promotional material type thing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a box, same thing, white, kind of create a simple box like so. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go File, Place one more time, and in the Images folder, I'm going to look for barcode EPS, place, and it doesn't matter where I click, but I am going to rotate from the corner and hold Shift so that it rotates perfectly in 45-degree increments. And now I'm going to actually shrink it down so that barcode fits in over the white box so that it can be scanned if it was an actual real job. So there you go. Now we could add text here, we could add article names, information, whatever we want. If it's a poster, we could actually just eliminate this whole bottom bar altogether. But we covered a lot of things there. We covered some of the things that you need to know with Photoshop as far as effects go, as far as combining layers, layer masks, color options, rotating. In Illustrator, we looked at loading custom fonts and brushes in Photoshop, making shapes, using transparency, all sorts of good stuff. And I'm just going to switch to full screen mode so you can see how that looks as a final sort of design. It looks great. So save your work, make sure you got through that. And if you had any trouble at all, make sure you check out my other videos on the basics. And hope to see you next time. Thanks for watching.